What's the most unforgivable lie a family member told you? I found out Dad was alive from a pharmacy technician. She called about his prescription refill, asked if Robert Chen wanted to switch to generic to save money. I told her Robert Chen had been dead since 2019. She said he'd picked up his blood pressure medication yesterday. Yesterday was Tuesday, October 10th, 2022. Mom had called me 3 years earlier, crying. Dad had a massive heart attack at work, died instantly, no suffering. The cremation was already arranged. He'd wanted it simple, no viewing. The memorial service would be Saturday. I was in Singapore for work, flew 23 hours straight, landed 2 hours before the service started. The service was real. The grief was real. 200 people attended. Dad's colleagues gave speeches about his dedication. His brother flew from Taiwan. There was an urn, a death certificate, a funeral program with his photo, his birth date, his death date, March 15th, 2019. I gave a eulogy about forgiveness, how we'd been estranged for 5 years over my marriage to someone outside our culture, how I'd planned to reconcile, how I'd waited too long, how I'd never forgive myself for letting pride prevent our final conversation. I sobbed through it. Mom held me afterward, said Dad knew I loved him. For 3 years, I carried that guilt. Went to therapy twice a week, developed panic disorder, lost 40 pounds, nearly lost my marriage to the grief, quit my job because traveling reminded me of missing Dad's last days, started taking antidepressants, wrote him letters he'd never read, visited his urn every month to apologize. The pharmacy was 15 minutes from Mom's house. I drove there directly. Dad was in aisle 3, comparing heartburn medications, aged but alive, reading ingredient labels through the drugstore glasses he'd always been too vain to wear publicly. He saw me, dropped the Pepto-Bismol. It exploded pink across the white linoleum. We stood there, him in his retirement cardigan, me in my grief uniform of unwashed sweatpants, staring across 3 years of unnecessary mourning. He ran. 68 years old with arthritis, and he ran. Left his prescriptions, his wallet at the counter, just ran. I chased him into the parking lot screaming, "Dad," while strangers stared. He drove away in a car I didn't recognize. License plate from Arizona. We lived in Ohio. I confronted Mom immediately. She was making dumplings, humming, didn't deny it when I told her. Kept folding dough around filling, creating perfect pleats while explaining. Dad had left her for his secretary. Cliché but true. The secretary was 28, pregnant, demanding marriage. Mom couldn't bear the humiliation. Couldn't tell family that her 40-year marriage had ended for someone younger than their daughter. So she invented his death. The memorial service? Actor she'd hired from Craigslist. The urn? Amazon, filled with fireplace ash. The death certificate? Photoshop and a cousin who worked at the courthouse. The crying colleagues? Dad's friends who thought they were attending Mom's cousin's funeral? She told them different names. The whole elaborate production cost $30,000. Dad had moved to Phoenix with his girlfriend, now wife. They had twins, 3 years old. My half-siblings I'd never know existed. He'd agreed to be dead to avoid paying alimony. Mom got everything in exchange for his social death. He'd started over with a new family while I'd been in therapy, sobbing about orphan syndrome, the pills I'd taken, the nights I'd stayed awake, listing things I'd never said, the Christmas I'd spent in psychiatric hold because I'd wanted to join him, the marriage counseling where I'd made my husband roleplay as Dad so I could apologize, the cemetery plot I'd bought next to his fake urn so we could be together eventually. Mom had watched all of it, held me through panic attacks, drove me to therapy, prescribed grief books, organized memorial anniversary dinners, collected sympathy cards, all while knowing Dad was in Phoenix teaching his new children to ride bikes. She lied to everyone. My aunts genuinely believed he was dead. His brother in Taiwan had mourned authentically. She'd created a grief community around a living man's death, let dozens of people rearrange their lives around a fictional tragedy. I called Dad's Phoenix number. His wife answered, said Bob didn't have a daughter. I could hear children in the background calling for Daddy. He'd erased me as thoroughly as Mom had erased him, except he was actually alive to do it. The pharmacy technician called back. Was Mr. Chen picking up his medication? I told her Mr. Chen was dead, had been for 3 years. She should update their records, remove him from the system, stop calling about corpses' prescriptions. She sounded confused but agreed.